I sat at our oak dining table, the one we'd painstakingly restored together in those early, happy days of marriage, staring at the glowing screen of my phone. Time slowed as I read the text again, willing the words to somehow rearrange themselves into something, anything, else. Counting down the hours until I can hold you again, Vanessa. Our son misses his daddy. Don't worry, I told Sarah I'm working late again. See you at 8. Love you both so much. I set the phone down with the careful precision of someone handling a live explosive. Ryan had sent it to me, his wife, Allison Crawford, not his. Vanessa. Not the mother of his son. Our son. The room tilted slightly. We'd been trying for 5 years. 5 years of temperature tracking, fertility specialists, 2 miscarriages, and countless tears. 5 years of Ryan holding me as I sobbed after each negative test. 5 years of him telling me, "It's okay, Allie. We'll try again. Or maybe adoption. As long as we have each other." All while he had another woman. Another child. I glanced at the clock. 5:43 p.m. Ryan would be home at his usual time, 6:30. Except apparently, he wouldn't. Not today. He had another home to go to. Another family waiting. I should confront him. Call him right now, scream, demand answers. Instead, I found myself eerily calm, methodically walking through our house, our perfectly decorated, childless house, seeing it with new eyes. The wedding photos on the mantel, Ryan in his charcoal suit, me in ivory lace, both of us radiating joy. Had he known her then? The calendar on the refrigerator with its fertility appointments and ovulation dates circled in hopeful red. Had he laughed about that with her? The extra bedroom we'd painted sunshine yellow 2 years ago, now serving as a home office. Did his son's room have yellow walls too? I wandered into our bedroom and opened Ryan's side of the closet. His clothes hung in meticulous order, shirts, pants, suits, a visual representation of the structured, honest man I thought I'd married. My gaze drifted to his drawer of socks and underwear. How many times had he told me he was working late, only to go to her? To them? A memory surfaced, Ryan last Christmas, excusing himself to take a business call during dinner with my parents. Now I wondered, had he been calling them? Wishing his son a Merry Christmas? My phone pinged from the dining room. I returned to find a new message from him. Sorry, Allie, that last text wasn't meant for you. Sending info to a colleague about a client meeting. See you at 6:30. A wave of nausea hit me. He wasn't even going to acknowledge what he'd done. He was going to lie, again, hoping I was too trusting or too stupid to understand what I'd read. I picked up my phone and stared at his message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. What could I possibly say? I know about your secret family? Don't bother coming home? How could you? In the end, I typed nothing. I set the phone down and walked to the kitchen, opening cabinets until I found the bottle of whiskey we kept for guests. I didn't drink much, but today seemed like an appropriate exception. As the amber liquid burned down my throat, another realization struck me. If Ryan had been living a double life, what else didn't I know? Our finances, for instance. I'd always trusted him with that. He was the accountant, after all. The practical one. I moved to his home office like a sleepwalker, my body functioning on autopilot while my mind reeled. His computer was password protected, but I knew it, his mother's maiden name followed by the year we met. How intimate that had once seemed, how special. Now it felt like another manipulation. I logged in, half expecting to find everything locked away behind additional passwords. But Ryan had apparently grown complacent in his deception. The files opened easily. Bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts, a second mortgage on our house that I'd known nothing about, and a rental agreement for an apartment across town, dated 3 years ago. 3 years. My breathing became shallow as I calculated backward. Around the time of my first miscarriage. While I'd been drowning in grief, he'd been establishing another life. A folder labeled insurance caught my eye. Inside were documents for policies I'd never seen, including one for a Vanessa Harmon and a beneficiary named Ethan Harmon, age 2. His son had a name now. Ethan. I sat back in the chair, the whiskey glass trembling in my hand. The room felt both too small and impossibly vast. The house I'd once found so comfortable, the life I'd believed was real, suddenly seemed like an elaborate stage set, hollow and false. The grandfather clock in the hallway, a wedding present from Ryan's parents, chimed 6 times, its familiar melody now sounding like a countdown to confrontation. I closed the files and shut down the computer, my mind oddly clear. I wouldn't confront him when he arrived. Not right away. I needed to know more first. Needed to understand the full scope of his betrayal before I decided what to do next. I freshened my whiskey and returned to the dining table. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I found Vanessa Harmon on social media. She was beautiful. Younger than me, with thick dark hair and bright eyes. Her profile was mostly private, but her cover photo was visible, her and a little boy at the park, his face partially turned away from the camera. A little boy with Ryan's distinctive hazel eyes. I felt a fresh stab of pain, sharper than before. Not just the betrayal of infidelity, which would have been devastating enough, but the knowledge that Ryan had given someone else the very thing we had struggled for together. The very thing that had broken my heart repeatedly over 5 long years. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway jolted me back to reality. I quickly closed the social media page and set my phone face down on the table. Then I took a deep breath and prepared to give the performance of my life. The front door opened. Ryan called out my name in the same loving tone he always used, as if he hadn't just revealed his monstrous deception with a careless text. In the dining room, I answered, my voice steadier than I would have thought possible. He appeared in the doorway, handsome in his navy suit, his smile warm and familiar. He was carrying a bouquet of lilies, my favorite, and for a crazy moment, I wondered if they were some kind of apology, if he'd somehow realized the magnitude of what he'd done and rushed to make amends. Then I saw the confusion in his eyes when he spotted the whiskey. Special occasion, he asked, nodding toward the glass. I took a slow sip before answering. Just felt like it. He set the flowers on the table and loosened his tie. About that text earlier. The one to your colleague? I interrupted, watching his face carefully. Relief washed over his features. Yes. Sorry about that. Work has been crazy today. He bent to kiss my cheek, and it took everything in me not to recoil. I'll put these in water and then change, okay? Did you start dinner? I shook my head. I wasn't feeling up to cooking. We can order in, he said easily, already heading toward the kitchen with the flowers. I watched him go, this man I'd shared a bed with for 8 years, this man I'd believed I knew better than anyone. This stranger. While he arranged the lilies in a crystal vase, a 5th anniversary gift from his parents, I studied his movements, looking for, what? Some sign of the deception? Some physical tell that would mark him as a liar and a cheat? But he was just Ryan, moving with the same efficiency he always had, his body language relaxed and open. This was a man who had lived a lie for so long, he no longer felt the weight of it. The evening progressed in a bizarre simulacrum of normalcy. We ordered Thai food. Ryan talked about work, about a client who was being difficult, about office politics. I made appropriate noises at appropriate times, asked the right questions, played the role of attentive wife while my mind screamed with unanswered questions. Who was Vanessa, really? How had they met? Did she know about me? Did she know she was the other woman, or was I? How did he manage to maintain two separate lives? Where did the money come from? Was anything about our marriage real? Allie? Did you hear what I said? I blinked, focusing on Ryan's concerned face across the table. Sorry, I was miles away. What did you say? I asked if you were okay. You're quiet tonight. The concern in his voice seemed genuine, and that was perhaps the most confusing part of all. How could he sit here, pretending to care about me, while living such an enormous lie? I'm fine, I lied, matching his deception with my own. Just tired. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Maybe you should go to bed early. We could both use an early night. Later, as we prepared for bed, I watched him perform his nightly routine, brushing his teeth, applying moisturizer, a habit I'd convinced him to adopt, setting the alarm on his phone. The domesticity of it all felt like a mockery. When he slid into bed beside me and reached for me, I feigned sleep. The thought of his hands on me, hands that had touched her, was unbearable. He pressed a kiss to my shoulder anyway. Good night, Allie, he whispered, and within minutes his breathing had settled into the deep rhythm of sleep. I lay awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, wondering how many nights he'd spent in another bed, whispering goodnight to someone else. The next morning, I called in sick to work, something I rarely did. As soon as Ryan left, with another kiss, another I love you that may or may not have been genuine, I began my investigation in earnest. The address on the rental agreement led to an upscale apartment complex on the other side of town. I found myself driving there, not sure what I planned to do when I arrived. Confront Vanessa? Spy through windows? I didn't know. I just needed to see it, needed some physical proof that this nightmare was real. The building was modern and sleek, with a doorman and security system. I couldn't get in, of course, but I sat in my car across the street, watching people come and go, wondering if I would recognize her if I saw her. After an hour, I spotted a young woman with a toddler exiting the building. Dark hair, slender build. Even from a distance, I knew it was her. The little boy was holding her hand, bouncing rather than walking, the way excited children do. Something broke inside me, watching them. Not just my heart, I'd felt that crack the moment I read Ryan's text, but something deeper, more fundamental. The future I thought I had, the life I'd been building, the identity I'd constructed as Ryan's wife, all of it fractured beyond repair. I started the car and drove away, tears blurring my vision, no destination in mind. I ended up at a park miles from home, sitting on a bench, watching mothers with their children, feeling like a ghost among the living. My phone rang. Ryan. Hey, I answered, surprised by how normal my voice sounded. Just checking in. How are you feeling? His voice was warm with concern. Still not great, I replied. I might go to my sister's for a few days. Get some rest. That's probably a good idea. I'll be home a little late tonight, big presentation tomorrow that I need to prepare for. Another lie, so easily delivered. Did he even realize he was doing it anymore? I understand, I said, and I did. Far more than he knew. I love you, he said, and I wondered if he said the same words to her with the same inflection. I love you too, I replied automatically, the well-worn phrase now feeling foreign on my tongue. After hanging up, I called my sister, Kate. She answered on the third ring, her voice harried with the sounds of her busy household in the background. Allie. What's up? Can I stay with you for a few days? My voice cracked, the calm facade finally breaking. Of course. What's wrong? Are you okay? No, I whispered. I'm really not. 2 hours later, I was sitting at Kate's kitchen table, pouring out the whole story while she listened in stunned silence. When I finished, she pushed away from the table and began pacing, her expression thunderous. That lying, cheating bastard, she fumed. I'm going to call him right now and… No, I interrupted. I don't want him to know that I know. Not yet. She stopped pacing, confusion replacing anger. What do you mean? You're not going back to him, are you? Of course not. But I need to understand everything first. I need to know how deep this goes, how long it's been happening. And I need to protect myself. Kate stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You need a lawyer. A good one. If he's been hiding money, hiding an entire life. I know. She sat back down, taking my hands in hers. What can I do? Just let me stay here for a bit. I'll tell Ryan I'm helping with the kids since Mark is traveling. Her husband often went on business trips, leaving Kate alone with their 3 children. It was a plausible excuse. Of course. Stay as long as you need. And Allie. Her grip on my hands tightened. You know this isn't your fault, right? None of it. I nodded, though I wasn't entirely sure I believed her. In the darkest corners of my mind, a voice whispered that perhaps if I'd been able to give Ryan a child, he wouldn't have sought out another woman. Perhaps if I'd been more attentive, more beautiful, more something. Stop, Kate said sharply, as if reading my thoughts. I can see you blaming yourself, and I'm telling you right now, don't. This is on him. All of it. That night, I lay awake in Kate's guest room, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of her house settling. I checked my phone to find a text from Ryan, hope you're feeling better. House is too quiet without you. I almost laughed at the irony. His other home was likely filled with the sounds of a toddler, never quiet, and here he was, pretending to miss me while probably relieved to have an uninterrupted night with his other family. But something else bothered me about the message. How was he managing this deception? Was he with Vanessa and Ethan right now? Had he told her some story about working late? Or was he actually at our house, maintaining the appearance of a devoted husband waiting for his sick wife to return? I considered calling the landline at home to see if he answered, then decided against it. I didn't want to arouse his suspicion. Instead, I sent a brief reply, feeling a bit better. Kate says hi. The next morning, I contacted a divorce attorney recommended by a colleague at work. Patricia Reynolds had a reputation for handling high-profile divorces with discretion and ruthlessness, exactly what I needed. Her office was sleek and modern, much like the woman herself. In her mid-50s with iron-gray hair cut in a severe bob, Patricia exuded competence and control. Ms. Crawford, she greeted me, her handshake firm. I understand you're in a difficult situation. I handed her the folder of documents I'd compiled, copies of our financial records, the rental agreement, the insurance policies, screenshots of the incriminating text and Vanessa's social media page. My husband has been living a double life for at least 3 years, I explained, my voice steady despite the pain beneath the words. I need to know my options. Patricia reviewed the documents with clinical efficiency, her expression betraying nothing. When she finished, she looked up at me with sharp, assessing eyes. First, we need to establish a complete picture of your marital assets. If your husband has been supporting another household, he's likely been diverting funds that you have a right to. I thought the same thing. Next, we need to determine if this Vanessa person knows about you. It could affect our strategy moving forward. I hadn't considered that. You think she might not know? Patricia shrugged. It's possible. Men who lead double lives can be remarkably convincing liars. She might believe she's his only partner. The thought landed like a stone in my stomach. Was Vanessa another victim in Ryan's elaborate deception? Or was she a willing participant, knowingly involved with a married man? What do you recommend? I asked. For now, continue as you have been. Don't confront him yet. We need more information. I'll have a private investigator look into your husband's movements, finances, and this Vanessa person. She handed me her card. Call me anytime, day or night. And Mrs. Crawford? Her eyes softened slightly. Take care of yourself. This is going to be a difficult road. I nodded, the lump in my throat making speech impossible. Over the next week, I maintained the fiction that I was staying with Kate to help with her children. Ryan called daily, his voice filling with manufactured concern when I said I still wasn't feeling well enough to come home. Maybe you should see a doctor, he suggested on the 5th day. I have an appointment tomorrow, I lied, matching his deception with my own. I could come with you. No need. Kate will drive me. In reality, I was spending my days with the private investigator, Steve Mason, compiling evidence of Ryan's double life. We discovered that he had opened multiple credit cards I knew nothing about, had a separate checking account, and had been withdrawing large sums of cash monthly for over 3 years. It's a classic setup, Steve explained. The cash withdrawals are hard to trace, which is the point. We also found that he's been diverting a percentage of his paychecks to another account, one with his and Vanessa's names on it. So she definitely knows about the deception? Steve hesitated. That's where it gets complicated. According to her social media and what we've gathered from interviewing neighbors at the apartment complex, she presents herself as a single mother who co-parents with her partner. She wears a ring, but it's not a traditional wedding band. What are you saying? I'm saying she might think he's divorced or separated from you. Or she might know the truth. We can't be certain yet. The uncertainty gnawed at me. If Vanessa was another victim, did I owe her the truth? And if she knew about me, was she any better than Ryan? Patricia advised against contacting Vanessa directly. It could complicate the divorce proceedings. Let's wait until we have the full picture. By the 2nd week, I was growing restless at Kate's house. Ryan had become more insistent about my return, and I was running out of excuses. I needed to make a decision, confront him or continue the charade. The decision was made for me when Patricia called. "We've found something," she said, her voice tight. "Can you come to my office immediately?" An hour later, I sat across from her, staring at a new set of documents, property records for a house in the suburbs, purchased 6 months ago, with both Ryan and Vanessa's names on the deed. "They bought a house together," I said, my voice hollow. "So he was planning to leave me?" "It appears that way," Patricia confirmed. "The down payment came from the separate account we identified earlier. There was something else, something in her expression that told me she was holding back. There's more, isn't there? She nodded, sliding another document across the desk. It was a marriage license. Issued 2 years ago. I don't understand, I said, my heart pounding. He can't be legally married to both of us. He's not, Patricia said gently. Look at the date. I did. The license was dated 3 weeks after our 8th anniversary. This doesn't make sense. We celebrated our anniversary together. I stopped, the pieces suddenly falling into place. Are you saying our marriage isn't legal? Patricia sighed. I've done some digging. Your marriage certificate was never properly filed with the county clerk. Technically, your marriage isn't legally recognized. The room tilted. I gripped the arms of my chair, trying to steady myself. How is that possible? We had a ceremony. There were witnesses. A priest. The ceremony was real. The paperwork wasn't completed correctly. It happens more often than you'd think. But in this case. She trailed off, her implication clear. He did it deliberately, I finished for her. He knew we weren't legally married. It appears that way. And it explains how he was able to legally marry Vanessa without committing bigamy. I felt a hysterical laugh building in my throat. So I'm not his wife. I never was. Not legally, no. But this actually works in our favor. How? Common law marriage. You've lived together as husband and wife for 8 years. You've presented yourselves as married to the community. You've filed joint tax returns. In this state, that constitutes a common law marriage, which is just as legally binding as a traditional one. So I still have rights. Absolutely. And now we have irrefutable evidence of fraud. He deliberately misled you about your marital status. I sat back, trying to absorb this new blow. Ryan hadn't just cheated on me, he had engineered an elaborate deception from the very beginning. Nothing about our relationship had been real. What happens now? I asked, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. Now, Patricia said, her expression hardening, we take him for everything he's worth. That evening, I returned to the house I'd shared with Ryan, the house I now knew wasn't legally mine at all. He wasn't home yet, probably with his real wife and child, so I had time to prepare. I walked through the rooms slowly, seeing everything with new eyes. The wedding photos mocked me from every surface. I took them down one by one, placing them in a box. I wouldn't destroy them. That would be too easy. I wanted Ryan to see them, to see what he had done. At 7:30, I heard his key in the lock. I sat at the dining table, the same place where I'd read his misdirected text 2 weeks ago. Allie, he called out, his voice filled with what I now recognized as artificial happiness. You're home. When he appeared in the doorway, his smile faltered slightly at the sight of me sitting in the semi-darkness. Why are you sitting in the dark? He asked, reaching for the light switch. The sudden brightness made me blink, but I didn't look away from his face. I wanted to see every flicker of expression, every micro-gesture as his world collapsed around him, just as mine had. How was your day? I asked, my voice eerily calm. He hesitated, confusion creeping into his features. Fine. Busy. How are you feeling? Better? I'm feeling very enlightened, actually. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit down, Ryan. We need to talk. His eyes darted to the table, where I'd placed the folder containing all the evidence Patricia and Steve had compiled. What's going on, Allie? Sit down. He did, slowly, warily. 2 weeks ago, you sent me a text that wasn't meant for me, I began. Do you remember what it said? His face paled slightly, but he maintained his composure. It was just a mix-up. A message to a colleague. Counting down the hours until I can hold you again, Vanessa. Our son misses his daddy. Don't worry, I told Sarah I'm working late again. See you at 8. Love you both so much. I recited the words that had been burned into my memory. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he attempted a laugh. Allie, I don't know what you think you're implying. I opened the folder and pushed a photo across the table. It showed Ryan entering the apartment building where Vanessa lived, Ethan in his arms. Ryan Daniel Crawford, I said, using his full name deliberately. Except that's not the name on your marriage license with Vanessa, is it? You used Ryan Daniel Harrison, your mother's maiden name. A nice touch. Another photo followed, Ryan and Vanessa standing in front of a suburban house, Ethan between them, all three smiling. Your family home, I continued. Purchased 6 months ago. Quite an upgrade from the apartment. His expression had shifted from confusion to anger. You've been spying on me? And you've been living a double life for at least 3 years, I countered. Which is worse, do you think? His jaw clenched, a vein pulsing in his temple. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. While I was grieving our miscarriages, you were starting another family. While I was tracking my ovulation and subjecting myself to invasive fertility treatments, you already had a son. While I was planning our future, you were living it with someone else. I pushed the marriage license across the table. What I don't understand is this. Why go through the charade of a wedding with me if you never intended for it to be legal? His eyes darted to the document, then back to me. For the first time, I saw a flash of genuine emotion in his face, something close to shame. It wasn't like that, he said, his voice low. Not at first. I loved you, Allie. I did. But? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache despite everything. But after the second miscarriage, you became obsessed with having a baby. Our whole life revolved around it. And I felt like I was losing you. So you found someone else. It wasn't planned. Vanessa was a client. We had a connection. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, but then she got pregnant, and I couldn't just abandon her. Unlike your wife, I said sharply. Me, you could abandon. I didn't abandon you. I've been here, haven't I? Physically, sometimes. Emotionally? I shook my head. You checked out years ago, Ryan. I just didn't recognize it because I was too busy blaming myself for our infertility problems. He had the audacity to look wounded. I never blamed you for that. No, you just went and had a baby with someone else. That's so much better. We sat in tense silence for a moment, the reality of our situation settling around us like dust after an explosion. What happens now? He finally asked. Now, I said, pushing one final document across the table, you sign these papers. He glanced down at the divorce filing. And if I don't? Then I call Vanessa and tell her everything. I wonder how she'll feel knowing that her husband has been living with his ex for 3 years. That the father of her child has been lying to her, too. His face darkened. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? I leaned forward. You don't know me anymore, Ryan. You haven't for a long time. He picked up the papers, skimming through them. You're asking for a lot here. I'm asking for what I'm entitled to under common law marriage statutes. Half of everything we acquired during our time together, including the money you've been diverting to your other family." He looked up, surprise evident in his expression. "Common law?" "Yes, Ryan. Despite your efforts to make our marriage non-existent, legally speaking, we're still spouses. And you've been committing fraud." He set the papers down, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I'll need to talk to a lawyer." "By all means." Patricia Reynolds's contact information is on page 1. I'd advise you not to delay. The longer this drags out, the more likely it becomes that Vanessa finds out the truth. I stood, suddenly exhausted by the conversation, by the proximity to this man who had shattered my world so completely. "I'll be staying with Kate until this is resolved. You can reach me through Patricia." He caught my wrist as I turned to leave. "Allie, wait. I know I messed up, but you have to understand, I never meant to hurt you." I looked down at his hand on my skin, then up at his face. "You never meant for me to find out. That's different." With that, I gathered my purse and walked out, leaving him sitting at the table amidst the wreckage of his deception. In the car, I finally allowed myself to cry deep, wrenching sobs that tore through me like physical pain. Not just for the marriage I'd lost, but for the years I'd spent believing in something that was never real to begin with. When I returned to Kate's house, she was waiting up for me, concern etched on her face. "How did it go?" she asked, pulling me into a hug. "It's over," I replied simply. "I've walked away from a marriage that never existed in the first place." The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings, property assessments, and emotional ups and downs. Ryan, faced with irrefutable evidence and the threat of Vanessa discovering his deception, agreed to Patricia's terms with minimal resistance. "He's playing it smart," Patricia explained. "Fighting this would only expose him further, and he knows it." Under the settlement, I received the house, which turned out to be nearly paid off, half of our joint savings, and a substantial alimony payment. Ryan would keep his retirement accounts and his share in the accounting firm where he worked. "What about Vanessa and Ethan?" I asked during one of our meetings. "Does she know yet?" Patricia shook her head. "As far as we can tell, no. Ryan has managed to keep this contained." I felt a strange mix of emotions about that. Part of me wanted Vanessa to know the truth, to experience the same devastation I had. But another part recognized that there was an innocent child involved, a little boy who didn't deserve to have his world shattered because of his father's actions. "Let me know if that changes," I said. "She deserves to know what kind of man she's married to." As the legal proceedings wound down, I began the process of rebuilding my life. I returned to the house, our house, now my house, and systematically removed every trace of Ryan. I donated his clothes, sold the furniture we'd chosen together, and repainted the walls in colors he would have hated. The yellow bedroom that had once been destined for a child we never had became my new home office. I threw myself into work, finding solace in the predictability and control it offered. Friends rallied around me, filling my weekends with outings and my evenings with companionship when the solitude became too much. Kate checked in daily, her fierce protectiveness a balm for my wounded spirit. 6 months after discovering Ryan's text, I received an unexpected visitor. I was in the garden, planting tulip bulbs for the spring, when a car pulled into my driveway. A dark-haired woman emerged, a small boy in tow. My heart stuttered in my chest as I recognized Vanessa from the photos I'd seen. She approached cautiously, her expression a complex mixture of determination and apprehension. Up close, she was even more beautiful than in the pictures, and younger, probably in her late 20s to my 37 years. Allison Crawford, she asked, her voice softer than I'd imagined. I straightened, wiping my hands on my jeans. Yes. And you're Vanessa. Surprise flickered across her face. You know who I am. I do. I glanced at the little boy half hiding behind her leg. He had Ryan's eyes, but Vanessa's delicate features. Hello, Ethan. The boy smiled shyly, then buried his face in his mother's skirt. Can we talk? Vanessa asked. I think we have a lot to discuss. I nodded, leading them into the house. In the kitchen, I poured juice for Ethan and set him up with some paper and crayons I kept for Kate's children. Then I made coffee for Vanessa and myself, the domestic ritual buying me time to compose my thoughts. How did you find me? I asked as we sat at the kitchen table, Ethan happily coloring at the counter. Vanessa cupped her mug between her hands. It wasn't hard. Ryan talks about you sometimes. His ex-wife who never got over the divorce. I nearly choked on my coffee. Is that what he told you? Among other things. She looked up, her eyes direct and searching. He said you were married for 5 years and split up because you couldn't have children. That you had a hard time accepting it and still call him sometimes, hoping to reconcile. The audacity of the lie was breathtaking. We were together for 8 years, I corrected. And we never legally divorced because we were never legally married, a fact I discovered only after finding out about you and Ethan. Vanessa blanched. What are you saying? I sighed, not wanting to cause this woman pain but knowing she deserved the truth. Ryan and I had a wedding ceremony 8 years ago, but he deliberately made sure the paperwork wasn't properly filed. He's been living a double life for at least 3 years. I found out 6 months ago when he accidentally sent me a text meant for you. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot I'd kept. Vanessa's hand trembled as she read it. This can't be right. We've been married for 2 years. He wouldn't, she stopped, something shifting in her expression. The business trips. The late nights at the office. Always on the same days each week. Like a schedule. I nodded, understanding dawning. Did he tell you he was divorced when you met? I asked gently. Yes, she whispered. He said it had been finalized a year earlier. That you were amicable but distant. Another lie in Ryan's web of deception. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I know this must be devastating, I continued, watching Vanessa's face crumple. Trust me, I understand exactly what you're feeling right now. Silence stretched between us as Ethan hummed quietly, oblivious to the adult tension saturating the room. The ticking of the kitchen clock seemed impossibly loud. What do we do now? Vanessa finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I shook my head. That depends entirely on what you want. Legally, my situation with Ryan is resolved. I gestured vaguely around the kitchen. This is my house now. The divorce settlement is final. And us? She glanced at Ethan, maternal protectiveness flashing in her eyes. That's between you and Ryan, I said gently. But if you need legal advice, Patricia Reynolds is excellent. Vanessa nodded, then surprised me by reaching across the table to grasp my hand. Thank you. For telling me the truth. For not hating me. We were both victims of the same man's deception, I replied, squeezing her hand before letting go. After they left, I stood in my garden again, hands deep in the cool earth, planting bulbs that would bloom long after winter's darkness had passed. There was something poetic about it, burying something dormant and broken, knowing it would eventually emerge transformed. 6 months later, I received a postcard from a small coastal town 300 miles away. The message was brief: "Ethan and I are starting fresh. Thank you for giving me the courage to leave." I placed it on my refrigerator, a reminder that sometimes the most devastating revelations can lead to unexpected freedom. That night, I sat on my porch swing, a recent addition to my reclaimed space, and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of possibility. The yellow bedroom was now a yoga studio. The dining table where I'd first read Ryan's misdirected text had been replaced with one I'd built myself. His betrayal had shattered the life I thought I wanted. But from those fragments, I'd constructed something stronger, something entirely my own. Sometimes endings are really beginnings in disguise.